The following program, The Russ Belville Show, is intended for responsible adults only. We advocate to the repeal of marijuana prohibition for adults. We discuss the science, culture, and controversy about America's marijuana laws. We do not advocate any illegal activity and encourage all listeners to learn their state and federal marijuana laws. Opinions and claims made by guests and advertisers on The Russ Belville Show are their own, and The Russ Belville Show cannot be held legally responsible for their validity or reliability. Viewer discretion is advised.
You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. Then it goes down smooth. Hey!
Spanning the continent to bring you the truth about cannabis and marijuana law reform.
I smoke pot and I like it a lot.
From the promise of legalization.
And I think that we need to rethink and criminalize our marijuana laws.
To the agony of prohibition.
One major responsibility is to encourage people to use less drugs.
The Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation.
Yeah, I hear you had a question for me.
Now, here's your host, Radical Russ Belville.
Good day, tokers and tokettes, and welcome. We have made it to the weekend. It is Friday, May 3rd, 2013, and it's got to be 420 somewhere in the world, and it's got to be Global Cannabis March Day tomorrow in most of the world. Please check that out. We're going to get into that in Behind the Headlines. I'll tell you how you can find where your city is, how to get involved, their Facebook page, all that information coming up in our Behind the Headlines segment right after our headline news. Also on today's show, the return of the Celeb Stoner Update. We've got Steve Bloom from CelebStoner.com. He's also the author of Pot Culture and Reefer Movie Madness. He'll be here to give us an update on all the celebrities, entertainers, musicians, and sports figures that are getting involved with marijuana, either voluntarily or involuntarily in some of their cases. We'll check that out at 1:30. Also, we got time for a radical rant today at the end of the show. You know, I've got my eyes laser focused on Kevin Sabet and Project Sam, and the whole Project Sam crew went to the U.S. Capitol. They went to the House and were speaking at one of the committees for Representative Harris there. It featured Patrick Kennedy, Christian Thurstone, Kevin Sabet, a new person by the name of Fernandez I didn't recognize from Mexico, and of course a statement from Gil Kurlikowski. We're going to tackle each one of those statements and show you just how full of crap each one of them are and how you can debunk this. They've got the big guns, folks. We got the PR going here. They're getting donations and money, and they're making a big splash. We've got to counter Project Sam at every possible opportunity. Also on today's show, it's time for your Daily Toker Tunes Rockin' Friday edition, and Herb Thrasher will be calling in. Of course, we are all just devastated by the sad news yesterday of the death of Slayer guitarist Jeff Hanneman. We'll be talking about that. Also, in honor of our Global Cannabis March coming up, we've got some Stormtroopers of Death with their march. And we've also got our 420 headline news coming up here right after this first break. We got a great poll out of Fox News to tell you about a Supreme Court decision in California that's due Monday. Maine is talking about marijuana legalization. The update on that Springfield repeal of the repeal city ordinance on decriminalization, and a little bit of sports that have something to do with both the New York Jets and the Oregon Ducks. Wow, lots of stuff to get to. We got a march as well. Plenty of stuff. Stay tuned for all of it. And your calls in hour 2.
We'll be right back after these messages from our 420 friendly sponsors. Support these advertisers because their ad money goes straight to the Russ Belville Show. You're tuned into the Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation. Hi, this is Dan Michaels. If you're looking for professional voice talent for your commercial or podcast, I'm your man. Visit danmichaelsaudio.com for more information.
This is your 420 radio news for Friday, May 3rd, 2013. I'm Russ Belville. Fox News poll, 85% support medical marijuana legalization from National Cannabis Coalition. A new Fox News poll conducted by the partnership of Democratic and Republican polling firms has found that a stunning 85% of Americans surveyed support the legalization of marijuana for medicinal purposes. This marks the highest level of support in the Fox News poll, rising from 81% support in 2010 and 79% support in 2001. Democrats were most in support of medical marijuana at 91%, but even 4 out of 5 Republicans, or 80%, believe, quote, adults should be allowed to use marijuana for medical purposes if a physician prescribes it, end quote. Support among men and women, white and non-white, college educated or not, was virtually identical. However, a plurality of Americans believe that most people are using medical marijuana laws merely to avoid arrest for smoking pot. Only 30% of respondents believed most medical marijuana users truly need it as medicine, while 47% believe, quote, they just want to smoke marijuana, end quote. Yet, even with this recognition of medical marijuana as a cover for personal use, Americans are virtually split on the subject of tacitly allowing legal personal marijuana use. 46% of the respondents favored outright legalization of marijuana, while 49% were opposed. On this topic, there is a great partisan and gender divide. Democrats and men support legalization by a majority, 57% and 51% respectively, while Republicans and women oppose legalization by a majority, 62% and 55%, respectively. Once again, women's support for legalization lags 10 percentage points behind men's support, and only 1 in 3, or 33% of Republicans, support legalization. Another interesting poll question asked whether driving was more dangerous after drinking alcohol or after smoking marijuana. A 51% majority agreed that drinking and driving was more dangerous, while only 4% of respondents thought toking and driving was worse than drinking and driving. 35% found both toking and drinking to be equally dangerous. No partisan, gender, age, race, or income demographic found toking and driving to be more dangerous than drinking and driving. More Republicans thought the worst of it at 6%. Only independents, 46%, and people over 55 years old, 43%, had pluralities that believed marijuana and alcohol were equally dangerous on the road. Medical marijuana ruling due Monday from Riverside News. The California Supreme Court will rule Monday, May 6, on a Riverside case that will decide whether local governments can ban storefront medical marijuana dispensaries. The ruling will decide whether cities and counties that have banned medical marijuana clinics through zoning ordinances are on solid legal ground, or whether they have overreached by blocking a way to purchase marijuana for use that is permitted by state law. There are an estimated 200 local bans statewide on medical marijuana stores. Maine panel hears case for marijuana legalization from Boston.com. With other states already starting to allow the legal use of marijuana, Maine needs to get ahead of the issue and legalize, regulate, and tax the sale of the drug, lawmakers were told Friday. The bill would legalize, tax, and regulate the sale of marijuana for personal consumption for people over 21 years old. Adults could possess up to 2.5 ounces legally and also grow up to 6 plants for personal consumption. The bill establishes a tax rate of $50 per ounce for marijuana sold by licensed marijuana cultivation facilities, which would generate $13 million in revenue for the state. Marijuana and Walmart could both appear on the Springfield August ballot from thenewsleader.com. An agenda for Springfield City Council reveals that a public vote on a marijuana ordinance could come during the election in August. The second agenda item is the previously repealed ordinance that would have reduced penalties for possession of small amounts of marijuana. Council has reworked the proposal, taking out language it previously cited as a reason to repeal the measure. Petitioners had enough signatures on an August campaign to force the council's hand on the issue. In a controversial move, the council adopted the ordinance change, but then immediately repealed it, citing issues in the petition language that conflicted with the Springfield City Charter. That included expunging conviction records and creating a citizen oversight committee. Council has now returned with an amended version of the proposed ordinance change, which would get rid of the committee and would not expunge the records. It does, however, limit punishments to $150 fine for 35 grams or less of marijuana. It also blocks arrests solely on the charge of possession of a small amount of marijuana. This has been your 420 Radio News for Friday, May 3rd, 2013. I'm Russ Belville. When we come back, we go behind the headlines and take a look at this Saturday's Global Cannabis March, taking place in 300 or more cities worldwide. We'll tell you how you can get involved, find the city near you, and what's happening at our local march here in Portland, Oregon. You're listening to The Russ Belville Show on 420radio.org. We'll be right back.
Herb Thrasher from the Herb Thrasher Flower Hour. Now get ready for Herb Age Designs for the proud cannabis consumer. Herb Age Designs, lifestyle gear for the 420 friendly. Herb Age Designs, home of the famous lighter leash. Herb Age Designs, get your Herb Age t-shirts and hoodies and show your pride. Herb Age Designs, we've got frisbee golf discs and durable hemp gear. Herb Age Designs. We've got shot glasses, drinking glasses, coffee mugs, and beer cozies. Check us out on Facebook and online at herbagedesigns.com. And follow Herb Age and Herb Thrasher on Twitter. We'll see you at this year's Hemp Fest. Crank it up.
Since medical marijuana became legal in Colorado, Marisol Therapeutics has been one of the most successful dispensaries in the state. Caring for thousands of patients, Marisol produces terrific medicine in their greenhouses and in their outdoor gardens. Here's Michael Stetler, the director of Marisol Therapeutics.
This is our grow. We handle probably over 1,500 patients. We're licensed by the state of Colorado, and we try to do things the proper way. Different patients need different strains for different ailments. It's really hard for us to grow this medicine and have the federal government say this and people out there in the everyday life not understand what this medicine's about. God wouldn't give us an herb like this for it to be the devil's plant, what they say, and that's wrong. This is an angel's plant. This does good for human beings. It's never killed nobody in its entire existence. It's time that we quit witch hunting this plant and, we take it into our knowledge and do good like the fathers did. Bless this plant and let that plant teach us.
Cannabinoids and health.
Cannabinoids.
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 Why am I having trouble saying that?
Cannabinoids.
Jeez.
Cannabinoids.
What a goof.
Flame on if you can. You're looking for the dope weed. Fire it up. Flame on if you can. You're looking for the dope weed. Bully boy's a man.
Welcome back. Time for us to go behind the headlines. And today we are taking a look at the Global Cannabis March taking place this Saturday, May the 4th, also known as Star Wars Day. May the 4th be with you, of course. And we will be there at Pioneer Courthouse Square tomorrow. So we will probably be starting about 11 a.m., but I'm sure I'll be there sooner, setting up PA and all the gear. If you are listening anywhere from around the world, you can find where your local edition of the Global Cannabis March is. They have set up a wonderful wiki for this, so it can be easily updated by everyone who's involved. And it's a pretty long address, so I've given you a short link for it. If you go to rad-r.us/MJ-March, and you got to capitalize MJM in that link. So it's rad-r.us/MJ-March with a capital MJM. And that link will take you right to where the United States listings are. You can scroll up and down to find your city. And if you scroll further up or down, you'll find the rest of the world. Go all the way to the top. They've got a handy map of the earth, and you can click on your continent and find where there is a march near you. Now, here in Portland, Oregon, like I mentioned, we're starting at 11 a.m. And first of all, I want to give big thanks and a shout out to Iko from Oregon Normal. He's the executive director of Oregon Normal. He's also the videographer on the Herb Thrasher Flower Hour for coordinating the march this year, getting the square taken care of, all the permitting and that stuff. We are going to have music and booths and vendors and all sorts of information for people from 11 to 2. There for the Global Cannabis March. So when you show up at 11, the host of the march is our very own Herb Thrasher. He'll be calling in just a little bit for our Rockin' Friday. Herb Thrasher will be the opening ceremonies and talking about freeing the drug war prisoners. And then we'll have music from some great local artists. At 5 after, we'll start with Justin James Bridges. And you've met Justin James Bridges on our show before. He was involved with Occupy and got beaten by Portland cops, beaten into a wheelchair, as a matter of fact. I think he may be out of it at this point and walking with a cane. But Justin, from getting beaten at Occupy, met 2 other musicians who pulled him away from the cops, and they formed a band. So I don't know if the whole band will be there or if it'll just be Justin, but we're looking forward to that set. Also at 11:30, Tim Pate, along with John Cornett, will be at the rally as well, playing some of their acoustic music, so check that out. At about 11:45, we start getting people together for the march, and the march leaves promptly at high noon. I mean promptly. This is my 8th Global Marijuana March. It could have been my 9th, except in 2004, when I arrived for the march, I got there about 5 afternoon, and nobody was there. They leave right at noon atomic clock time. So make sure you get there a little bit earlier so we can get a sign in your hand, or we can get you organized for how we're going to participate in this march. We anticipate anywhere from 500 to 1,000 people in the Portland March, maybe more. It's going to be a gorgeous weekend in Portland, so there's no reason for anyone not to attend the march. Even if you're mobility impaired, if you have difficulty with marching a long distance, we have the Cool Bus. The Cool Bus is a biodiesel powered school bus, basically, biodiesel powered school bus that people with mobility issues can load up into. The bus follows the march, and then everybody's, waving and yelling out the windows. It's a really, really great addition. We also have an ASL interpreter for those people with hearing issues. You'll be able to read the sign language for everyone that is giving their speeches. When we return from the march, that is when the speakers begin. I will also have music there and be streaming live with 420radio.org, so you can check us out online. At 12:35, Paul Loney, who is the legal counsel for Oregon Normal, will be speaking. At 12:50, I will be speaking on behalf of 420 Radio. At 1 o'clock, Anthony Johnson from the National Cannabis Coalition, who is also a proponent of the SB 3371. That's our bill in the Oregon legislature to legalize marijuana that we are hoping gets passed on to the voters as a referendum. At 1:10, Leland Berger, who's an attorney with Compassionate Oregon, working on the medical marijuana side of things. He'll give us updates on PTSD and some of the other bills that are going through the Oregon legislature to reduce penalties for marijuana. Anna Diaz from the Normal Women's Alliance, a winner of the Pauline Sabin Award, she'll be speaking at 1:20. Madeline Martinez, formerly the Oregon Normal head, but now with Law Enforcement Against Prohibition, also on the Normal board, she will be speaking at 1:30. Our final speaker at 1:40 will be Jennifer Alexander, the Portland Cannabis Examiner, also the co-host of A Different View right here on 420radio.org. Then from 1:45 to 2 o'clock, we'll be closing up shop there at the Pioneer Courthouse Square, but it will be a great 3 hours of information and activism and music and all sorts of great stuff. So we hope that you can join us, and we hope that you can, if you can't be in Portland, that you can attend your local march. Again, the address is rad-r.us/MJ-March, capital MJM. rad-r.us/MJ-March will get you to the Wikipedia page for the Global Cannabis March. You can find your city. There are hundreds of cities worldwide that are participating in this. Most major metropolitan areas have a march. If you are lucky enough to be in Toronto Oh my God. Toronto is the biggest one on the planet. It has about 30,000 people that show up for their march. The New York City March, originally founded by Dana Beal, Cures Not Wars, and the Yippies, that started in 1999, and we're continuing it today. Let's push the door open on legalization all across America. All right, well, that means it's time for a break, and we're enjoying ourselves a little bit of TGA genetics here. Some jelly bean in the bowl. I hope you got a good bowl, too. Hope to see you at the march tomorrow. We'll have plenty of stickers for you, too.
Oh, have you ever met that funny reefer man? A reefer man. Have you ever met that funny reefer man? A reefer man. If he said he swam to China, he would send you South Carolina. Then you know you're talking to that reefer man.
Normal Show Live reminds you to never consent to a search. If you're holding and you consent, in most states you will be arrested immediately and you will go to jail. If you don't consent to a search, police may try to intimidate you by threatening to bring in drug-sniffing dogs or try to fool you by saying things will go easier if you consent. Yeah, easier for them, sure. Stand your ground, refuse the search, and ask the officer if you're free to go. If they still detain you and eventually find your contraband, you'll be no more busted than if you had allowed the search. But by refusing the search, your attorney has a chance to win your acquittal before a judge. If you consent to the search, your attorney's hands are tied. You can find a list of Normal Legal Committee attorneys specializing in marijuana cases by visiting the Find a Lawyer link at normal.org.
Funky roller ring.
Oh, yeah.
What's happening, Groovy Cats? This is your Funk Master of Ceremonies, Big Daddy. And I want you to join me every Thursday night at 11 Eastern, 8 Pacific, right here at the Funky Roller Ring.
Oh, yeah.
Your home of soul, funk, and disco, baby.
Funky-licious.
There's always a party at the Funky Roller Ring.
Everyone knows music and marijuana go together, so let's wind up our 20 after break with the Russ Belville Show's Daily Toker Tunes, the best in pod-safe 420 music from around the web. Today is Rockin' Friday, featuring rock, metal, and the hard edge of alternative country. You can get downloads and more information about all our Daily Toker Tunes by visiting music.radicalruss.com. Now, sit back and enjoy your Daily Toker Tunes.
All right, folks, we got Herb Thrasher on the line, and unfortunately we open up with sad news from yesterday. Jeff Hanneman, the guitar player for Slayer, passed away at about 11 a.m., and everyone was shocked by this news, Herb. Was there any indication that he had any sort of health problems or anything like that?
Man, it's just, it's an unbelievable, sad story, and it did hit us like a ton of bricks. What the deal is previously, a good 3, 4, 5 years ago, and I say that because it's always been low-key stories about this, but he was bitten by a spider, and this spider bite it was bitten on his arm, and of course you can't play guitar without your arm, and so he was affected big time. He ended up having to sit out some tours. Sitting out tours ended up sitting out some years. Sitting out years ended up bringing in another guitarist into Slayer. And all the while, we just always knew that he was bitten by a spider bite, major infection. It's bad, but he'll be back one day. All of a sudden, yesterday, the metal world is celebrating because our famous award ceremony is this night called the Golden Gods Award. So everyone's fired up. Everyone's in L.A. where Jeff Hanneman is. And then all of a sudden, the sad and tragic news at 11 a.m., he passed away. And the only news so far is liver failure. And so we are kind of expecting somehow that this spider bite ended up affecting his organs or some kind of something. Just not real sure, but definitely a sad story, and condolences go to Jeff Hanneman and Slayer and the entire family.
Yeah, no doubt about that. And coincidentally enough, turns out Jeff Hanneman was born on January 31st, just like I was. I did not know we had the same birthday.
Yeah, imagine that. You with Jeff Hanneman and me with Farrah Fawcett. I mean, it's just amazing, you know. I mean, having these major stars.
Yeah.
So we'll have to start celebrating the four of us from now on.
There we go.
But yeah, you know, big times. The metal world's it's tough because you know metal we're positive people. I know it doesn't appear that way, but we really are, and so we tend to celebrate more than cry, and so we're kind of celebrating. And it brings me to tonight on Herb Thrush Flower Hour. We're definitely playing some Slayer songs. Slayer wasn't known as a stoner rock band, but they were definitely known as a forefather thrash metal band who had some stoners in this band, and they definitely know what's up. So we're going to support them, play with them, and as we know, there's so much going on in the cannabis world, many marches going on, many cities, and so I've found a couple of good songs that kind of have some march themes that we'll be playing tonight, and pick 3, 4, 5 cities out, and we'll tell you what they have going. And excited to have in-studio guest Smoke Dog Jr. from the world-famous Cannabis Cafe.
Yeah.
This guy right here, you know, he knows so much. He's been involved in many marches. Fortunately, he's a headbanger, metalhead like myself, and so he's going to be able to know a little bit about Slayer too. And and they have a very cool thing going on right now that we're going to find out about. But it's the 710 National Dab Association, and it's a basketball league. And we're going to be able to find out about this and what they have going. They have teams and just great stuff going on. And so as the cannabis community continues to move forward and people like Kevin Sabet continue to move backwards, we're just making the world happen. And so we're going to find out about this and all this stuff, talk about it. And today on Rockin' Friday, got a killer tune with another March theme. And this is one of the classic riffs of all time. Scott Ian from Anthrax, he wrote this riff, and they're in Stone Troopers of Death. And this is March of SOD. It's just a classic song. This was basically a side project for Anthrax, where they were in the studio doing an album, and it was supposed to be a joke. And they put out this album, Speak English or Die, back in 1985, and it ended up being a pioneering album because it combined punk and thrash and was a whole new wave. And so this song right here, March of SOD, is one of the songs that always fires me up. If this riff, the beginning of the song, just doesn't fire you up, it's just not much that can if you like the guitar and loud and distortion. And so you guys turn it up, be safe, please, please, please. You can go to the 420 Radio website. Russ posted a link where you can find a march to a city near you. Please support all the marches. We have so much to fight for, and you guys be safe. Join us tonight at 8 o'clock, Herb Thrush Flower Hour, and you guys take care.
All right, you people ready? I said Seattle, are you ready? We are SOD! The Ballad of Nirvana! Thank you very much, Seattle. Good night.
Yeah, I watch MTV all the time. They have the Rock Against Drug commercials, that whole campaign. And these guys have, like, slid into fucking school buses and killed 20 children. Rather than a facial license, they made a public service announcement. Yeah, no shit. Yeah. I love these guys that is hello, listen, don't get caught with drugs or you'll have to do a commercial just like this one. I think I found the message. The message is don't get caught. Rock Against Drugs. What a fucking name. Somebody was high when they came up with this title. Yeah. It's like Christians Against Christ. Rock created drugs. What are they talking about? They go together, folks.
The world of entertainment includes many actors, musicians, athletes, and celebrities who find their way into the world of weed. The Russ Belville Show catches you up with the latest with Steve Bloom and the CelebStoner.com Entertainment Report.
Well, I would if Steve Bloom would answer the phone. I don't know if he recalled that we were having an interview today. Let's see if he does. We'll try the line one more time here. He said to call the cell phone. Hello, do we have Steve Bloom on the line?
Hello?
Hello, trying to reach Steve Bloom?
Who am I speaking with?
This is Russ Belville from the Russ Belville Show.
Okay, how can I help you?
I'm trying to reach Steve Bloom.
Oh, you have the wrong number.
Thank you very much. Okay, well, wrong number. All right. Let's go to some music. I'll see if I can find the right number. Let's just see what we got. Welcome back, everybody. We'll see if we got Steve Bloom on the line. Do we have you, Steve?
That's me.
Oh, glad to have you. I must have got a typo in your phone number there, but glad to have you here. Celeb Stoner Entertainment Report from CelebStoner.com. And been a while since we talked. We're getting ready for the Global March coming up tomorrow. Are you getting ready for that as well?
Yeah, definitely. In New York, where the event started many, many years ago, 1971, the original smoking and pot parade began here and turned into the Global Marijuana March about 10, 15 years ago. So I plan to be there. I'll be performing with David Peel and the Lower East Side. I like singing his band.
That's excellent. All right. And as far as the Celeb Stoner Entertainment Report goes, there's a few stories that I had my eye on. One that I was going to try to get into today's news, but didn't have the time. And it's right there in your backyard. New York Jets, couple of new players from my Stoner League, huh?
Yeah. Well, as it's that, I mean, one of the guys you might know, a former Oregon player,
right?
Yeah, so there were actually two guys who were not really, they were picked up by the Jets in the off season, but they're not, real, team players. They had never played for the Jets yet. But they were arrested. Cliff Harris and Claude Davis. Cliff Harris used to play at Oregon, and he was actually kicked off the team out there. So you probably remember that guy. He's a cornerback.
If I remember correctly, Cliff Harris.
The Jets picked him up, and they dumped him real quick. Jets have a new general manager. I guess he's not going to take this stuff, and he just let the guy go real quickly. Although they probably could have used him since they don't have Darrelle Revis anymore.
Yeah, and if I remember, Cliff Harris was one of the guys that got busted on I-5 speeding, and the cops pulled them over. Him and a couple other guys from the Oregon team pulled them over, said they were speeding, could smell marijuana in the car, and asked them if they had any marijuana. And I think it was Harris that replied, "No, we smoked it all."
That's right. That's the guy.
Oh, my God.
He's definitely one of our guys, but he keeps on getting in trouble. He is now, him and his buddy who both got arrested, make that 34 NFL players have been arrested for marijuana or other drugs since 2008.
Wow.
So it's by far the most athletes arrested for drugs and marijuana in particular are football players, whether it's, NFL or college. They exceed all other athletes by far.
Yeah, absolutely. Another big news story as far as celebrities goes was just this past Tuesday, Willie Nelson turned 80. I sure hope he kicks that marijuana addiction before it ruins his life.
Yeah, let's hope. Yeah, well, good for Willie. You think about people like Willie Nelson. There's very few performers at that age who tour and travel to the extent that he does. I can only think of maybe Tony Bennett, who doesn't really travel like Willie, but is still out there performing. I think Tony Bennett's 87 or something. Willie's 80, and he's just a force of nature. He's pretty much on and off about every 3 weeks. He goes and tours for 3 weeks and then goes to Hawaii and just chills out and gets his energy back and then gets back out on the road. And that's what you'll see this summer as Willie keeps chugging around. But I'll tell you, people should catch him just in case Willie starts to slow down.
Yeah,
just in case.
I got a chance to see Willie a couple years ago and stand off the side of the stage and watch him do his thing, and it was just an amazing experience. I'll never forget it. It was just wonderful.
He just rolls so many songs too. He's written so many, and of course he pays tribute to so many other songwriters. And you sit there during a show, and he must go through 60, 70 songs. And plus, Willie Nelson is an amazing guitar player. Everybody thinks about his songs and his singing and who he is and what he stands for and his marijuana advocacy. The guy can play. That old guitar he's got with the hole in it, unbelievable. That guy is such a great picker.
Yeah. A lot of people completely underestimate Willie Nelson's musicianship, and when you see him live, you get a taste of it. It's just amazing. All right, let's take a look at some of the stoner movies out there. We got to work with the folks that were doing Cheech and Chong's animated movie, the musical soundtrack, and we debuted a lot of these new tunes. But of course, there's also the Cheech and Chong animated movie. I wonder if you got a chance to see it and what you thought.
I did see it. It had the opening in, around the country on 4/18, the 2 days before 4/20, and then on 4/20 as well. So it was a very limited theatrical release, and it was just, only a couple of days, and you had to kind of look around to find it. And sadly, when I went to see the showing on the Thursday before 4/20, I was the only person in the theater.
Wow.
Where were the Now, nobody knew. I was curious. I wanted to know where it was, so I went to the Cheech and Chong website, and I saw the theaters, and I saw where they were playing, and I made a note on my calendar, and I said, I'm going to go to that movie. But nobody else did that or knew to do that because they didn't advertise it. Nobody knew. Now, maybe people came out for the 4/20 showing at another theater, but besides it not being anybody in the theater, I really enjoyed it. It's a lot of fun. It's just a pretty, it's a little naughty, in the typical Cheech and Chong way of, their sense of humor, a lot of farts and poops and this and that, and but it's all their old bits, and anybody who's seen them over the last few years, in their reunion tours, they do all their old routines. Dave's not here, and let's make a dope deal, and the sniffing dogs, and all these different characters. They have dozens of characters, and they break out all these characters in the movie, and it's just a lot of fun, to see it done in an animated way. These guys are sort of so animated to begin with, so I really like it. I mean, I don't think it's really caught on because I don't think people really have seen it, and now you probably have to just go buy a DVD or a Blu-ray, or it might be available on demand and some cable packages. So look for that. But I really like it. It's a really fun movie. So it's wild. It's just a wild cartoon. It's not what you're going to get, for the Shrek crowd. It's really for our crowd, the stoners. But I think the stoners really just want to watch movies at home, unfortunately, and they have to have a lot of publicity to urge them to go to the movie theater. So they need a bit of a budget to advertise. Hey, you got to go. But if you don't know, people are going to sit at home and wait for it to be on TV.
Yeah, that's probably right. I'll look forward to getting that DVD as soon as I can as well. There's another movie you have listed on the celebstoner.com website, and I'm interested in this one because I'm a reader of cracked.com, and there's a humor writer out there he's been promoting this book he wrote called John Dies at the End. I didn't know there was going to be a movie of it. Can you tell us about that?
That's a strange movie. It's a movie about it's like a horrorcore movie with a lot of comedy built into it. There's a lot of like exploding heads and guts and these large insects pouring out of people's bodies and stuff. Basically, the idea of this movie is that there's a drug called soy sauce that is infecting the people who take it, and once they take it, they sort of don't last too long and they kind of get obliterated. But the two main characters in the story, John and David, and it's based on a novel by David Wong of the same title, they sort of survive and they can go on this sort of, crazy mission to try and track down what's happening to everybody and how they can kind of stop what's happening based on the drug. So it's an exploitation sort of B-style movie, but it really is sort of a fun ride. I mean, it's a little gross, and it's done by a filmmaker who's very good at these types of films. So, the filmmaker, Don Coscarelli, who did Phantasm and Bubba Hotep and The Beastmaker. So the production values are pretty good for this sort of B-quality movie. It has a feeling of Naked Lunch with all these sort of weird insects all over the place. And what's interesting also is that Paul Giamatti, the Academy Award-nominated actor, plays a character, and he's also a producer. So he got behind this movie. And the other person behind this movie is Jeff Myers, who was the director of The Emperor of Hemp. His son is one of the producers. And that's how I heard about it. Jeff sent me a note when it came out a few months ago saying, hey, you should go catch this in the movie theaters, and I wasn't able to catch it. And then I got a copy of it on Netflix, and, sort of partially from the urging of Jeff to see this movie, and he thought it would be an appropriate movie because of the drug theme, the cover of Celeb Stoner. So I did, and, it's fun. It's a fun movie. It's off the wall, but it's a lot of fun.
All right. We will take a look at that. John Dies at the End when it comes out nearby. Let's turn to the world of music. You have a headline here about Bob Weir. What's going on with Bob Weir, formerly of the Dead, with the Further show?
Right. Well, Bob took a fall 2 Thursdays ago, I guess a week ago yesterday, at the Capitol Theater run of the Further. Band was playing 7 shows there, and that's up in Port Chester, New York, so it's a little north of New York City. And in the last show, Bob, during this middle of the second set, towards the end of the second set, he started listing over. Now, there's a video of the show, and if you go to celebstern.com, you'll find the video. And he was just tipping over, and gradually, slowly, almost like in a nod type thing, he tipped over. And I think the Grodies were kind of watching him because they could see him kind of lisping a little bit, during that set. But they went over to him at one point and said, hey, you want a chair? And he said, no. So they left him alone, and there he was, sort of like, kind of like leaning on the speaker, and then he went down on his left side. They ran over and picked him up, dusted him off, put him back in a chair, and then, sort of typical Grateful Dead style, they just kept playing. It's like if an athlete goes down on the court, in basketball, you call a timeout, you see if he's okay, and maybe you take a break until he gets off the court. No, not at a Grateful Dead show. They've seen it all. So, they've seen Jerry Garcia go through similar, not they fell down, but, being kind of a little out of it on stage, forgetting words, a little drugged out, they've seen it all. They've seen a lot of their band members die over the years from drugs. So I don't know. They don't stop. They did not stop. The music went on for another 10 minutes. Bob sitting in a chair. Then they took a break. They went off stage. Bob did not come back. The band came back, finished up the show. Phil Lesh, who more or less leads the group, said that Bob's had a little problem tonight, but we're going to keep going. And they finished the set, and then they played another show the next night in Atlantic City, which Bob played at. So it seemed like he was okay, recuperated. But now they announced this week that they had a show scheduled for Napa in California, a festival called the Bottle. I'm trying to figure the name of the festival. It's a really cool festival, the Black Keys and lots of other groups. And they canceled their performance on May 9th there. So that has led people, the rumor mill, to question what's wrong with Bob. Now, Phil Lesh said that he had hurt his shoulder, and maybe they were hinting that he was on some painkillers, and that made him a little groggy, and that's why he fell. Could be be the complete explanation. But a lot of other people in the deadhead community wonder whether Bob does have a drug problem. I've been told that he doesn't, in terms of anything heavy like heroin, which is being kind of speculated. I've been told by someone in the know that that's not the case. However, we don't know where he is now, whether he's in a rehab or whether he's just getting better. But they have delayed, they postponed a performance, and now they're gearing up for a short kind of swing back east in July, and then they've got some shows, Red Rocks, and some California shows in September and October. It's not a really busy schedule, so I think Bob can probably handle it. But I guess you wonder, maybe sometimes it's hard standing up there at 65 years old on stage for hours. Maybe you do get tired and your legs get a little wobbly. It could happen.
Yeah.
I feel a little wobbly sometimes myself when I'm standing for hours at a concert. So, maybe it's just everybody's reading into it. But there is some suggestions that this is not the first time. Bob's left a couple of shows in the past. He's forgetful of words. So people are speculating that he's got a problem.
Well, that's sad to hear. We'll see how that turns out on our next edition of the Celeb Stoner Entertainment Report. Steve, before we let you go, any other announcements you need to make or plugs that need to get out there?
I always appreciate you allowing me to do this. But right now, what I'm most excited about is the new Celeb Stoner. We spent some time retooling the site and rebooting the site in the last couple of months. So I think if people go to the site, they'll see a new look, a nice clean look that was designed by Garrett Overstreet, my buddy from Tulsa Normal, and webmaster. And so, we have a new style. Hope people come back to the site and take a look at it and support Celeb Stoner. But I just came back from Denver where I saw you. So we were at the expo and the big High Times blowout. Unfortunately, we weren't at Civic Center that day, so we stayed away from the panic. And we're in a nice peaceful environment. But right now, kind of laying low. I may go to Seattle Hemp Fest, and I may see you out there in August.
All right. Well, thanks so much for everything you're doing out there. Keeping track of the sports and entertainment, movies, all that stuff. Celeb Stoner Entertainment Report. We'll talk to you again real soon. Thanks, Steve.
Thanks as always.
All right. When we come back, we'll have time for a radical rant. Project Sam was on Capitol Hill delivering 40,000 signatures to keep marijuana prohibition in place and their profits. We're going to tackle that, tear it apart, poke it with a stick. Be right back.
You smoke trees till you get what you need now. Designer drugs and minted smokes to get through the day. You always get them so high.
We'll be right back after these messages from our 420 friendly sponsors. Support these advertisers because their ad money goes straight to the Russ Belville Show. You're tuned into the Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation.
NORMAL stands for Responsible Adult Cannabis Use. If cannabis use is causing problems in your life, consider taking a break or seeking medical assistance. Consider ceasing cannabis use if you have a family history of mental illness. Don't drive or operate heavy machinery while impaired by cannabis use. Cannabis use is not without risks, even though the risks are far less than those posed by legal drugs.
Look, when I was a kid, I inhaled frequently. That was the point.
Remember, Mr. President, you once were just one bust away from being Barry the drug criminal.
Life ain't a box of chocolates gum. That's why people smoke weed and take bumps and drink way too damn much and get drunk.
You want answers? I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore. You want answers?
You have offended my family.
I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth.
And you have offended a Shaolin temple.
You can't handle the truth.
Surely you can't be serious. I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
Radical rant.
All right, folks, my adversary, my Lex Luthor, my Joker, Kevin Sabet. You know him in Project Sam, which stands for Smart Approaches to Marijuana. And they have gotten together and gone to Capitol Hill, according to their latest report that's on their Learn About Sam website. They say they held a briefing at the House Rayburn building to discuss the link between marijuana and mental illness, and also presented 40,000 signatures to the House and Senate leadership in support of marijuana prevention and in opposition to marijuana legalization. And I thought it would be interesting to just kind of take a look at some of the malarkey that they are spewing at our representatives, trying to get them to go against the will of the people, that clearly shows that we want medical marijuana and is increasingly showing that we want legalized marijuana, period. First of all, Patrick J. Kennedy, PJK4 Brain Health on Twitter, by the way. Patrick J. Kennedy, his thing's all about the mental illness side of things. So he said, quote, "Science has revealed more about the link between mental illness and marijuana use in the last 10 years, and it is important that the American people understand that as we make critical policy decisions in the coming years." End quote. The link between mental illness and marijuana use. You know what the link is between mental illness and marijuana use? Anytime Patrick Kennedy thinks about marijuana use, he goes mentally ill. That's the only link there is, people. If you take a look at the worldwide rates of schizophrenia and psychosis, you can take a look at it. There's been studies that have done this over a 40-year cohort of information coming from Britain, the UK. There's been studies in the United States. There's been studies in New Zealand. All these studies that take a look at the long-term incidences of schizophrenia and psychosis find that about 1% of the people have schizophrenia or psychosis. This was the same in 1950, before people started smoking a lot of marijuana. It was the same in 1960s as people smoked more marijuana. It was the same in the 1970s as we approached the greatest use of marijuana in this country. It was the same in the 1980s and 1990s as marijuana use decreased. And it's the same now in the 21st century. Marijuana use does not cause mental illness. There is no causal link between the two. Now, if somebody might be predisposed to mental illness, if they have that running in their family, there is some evidence to show that marijuana use may bring that on or exacerbate it, but it does not cause it. Someone who is mentally ill is mentally ill. Someone who is not mentally ill is not going to become mentally ill from the smoking of marijuana, period. Now, Dr. Christian Thurstone was also there. Now, he's the director of Colorado's largest youth substance abuse treatment clinics. So he needs that steady stream of court-sentenced people to rehab. We've covered these statistics before from the treatment episode data set that show for every one person who chooses to go into rehab for marijuana, there are 4 people who are forced to go into rehab for marijuana by the court systems. He said, quote, "Colorado is already seeing the deleterious effects of a very loose medical marijuana system. Now with legalization, we are witnessing how big marijuana, that is a new industry dedicated to profiting off legal marijuana use, is influencing youth behavior." I'm surprised that Patrick Kennedy let him take the big marijuana angle. Let's talk about big marijuana, because there currently is a big marijuana, except it goes by the name Marijuana Grande. It is the Mexican cartels that currently control the marijuana market in most American cities. We already have a big marijuana, and we've already seen how it influences youth behavior. It has created the profit motive that gives 1 million teenagers a job in dealing marijuana. We have 44% of our American school children saying they know someone they can get drugs from at their school, and 91% of the time that drug dealer has marijuana in the schools. Today, if a youth wants to get a hold of marijuana, he can do so without ever interfacing with an adult. He can go straight to his own teenage weed dealer. Now, that is not the situation with tequila. If a kid wants to get a hold of some tequila, he has to interface with an adult at some point. He's got to steal it from an adult's liquor cabinet. He's got to find some adult that will go into the liquor store and buy it from him. Or he's got to go in and try to buy it from an adult clerk with a fake ID. But somewhere along the line, there will be an adult involved. Will this completely end kids getting a hold of tequila? Well, of course not. Kids get a hold of tequila all the time, but they have to corrupt an adult to do it. With marijuana, they do not. If we can control tequila, why can't we control marijuana the same way? And of course, Dr. Kevin Sabet was there as well at the House Rayburn building, discussing how the science of marijuana should lead policymakers to take a more nuanced view of policy moving forward. He said, quote, We are on a 100-mile-per-hour freight train heading right towards legalization, and yet we have not, as a country, had a reasonable discussion about the possible negative consequences of such a policy. Really, Kevin? Because we've been talking about it since 1970. There has been a policy discussion regarding marijuana legalization. It's just your side has refused to engage in it until we finally legalized in 2 states. We've been discussing this for quite a long time, Kevin. He continues, and hold on to your hats for this one. He says, quote, such consequences will hit the most vulnerable first, like young people, communities of color, and those predisposed to mental illness. Don't we at least owe it to ourselves to carefully weigh any gains of such a policy with the potential risks? Kevin Sabet, did you just tell us that legalizing marijuana will be worse for black kids? Legalizing marijuana will put black kids, Latino kids in jeopardy more so than the current prohibition already does, where 85% of the people stopped and frisked in New York City for marijuana are black or Latino, where blacks have a 7 times greater and Latinos have a 4 times greater chance of being arrested, convicted, and imprisoned for marijuana crimes than their white marijuana using brethren, despite the fact white people and black people use marijuana at about the same rates and Latinos use it far less than white or black people. And you think legalizing it is going to be worse for black and Latino people? Really? Really? What planet are you living on? Do you really think that the black community would feel better about perhaps having a marijuana store on the corner that has security cameras and checks IDs than having teenagers on the corner selling weed to whoever comes in from the suburbs? Don't you think the black community might appreciate having lawful, law-abiding, court and lawyer-using marijuana businesses that pay taxes and contribute to their communities than to have the current situation where people who deal marijuana illegally tend to shoot at each other? Really, Kevin, that's just astounding you could say something like that. But not quite as astounding as this next one. Treatment leader Carmen Fernandez of Mexico discussed how legalization would hurt the Mexican people. Quote, marijuana legalization in the U.S. will destabilize our country. That is why nearly 40,000 people have signed a petition to the U.S. Congress to not legalize marijuana, but rather focus on reducing the insatiable demand for the drug. End quote. Really, Carmen? Legalizing marijuana in the U.S. will destabilize Mexico more than it's already destabilized? You're going to have more than 60,000 murders over the span of a few years? You're going to have more people burned and tortured and hung from your bridges? Really? You're going to have more police forces that are corrupted? You're going to have more businesses choosing plata o plomo, a bullet or a bribe? Really? It's going to... Carmen, can you tell me how many shootouts and deaths there have been in the war between Corona and Dos Equis? Or between Jose Cuervo and Patron? Oh yeah, they're not fighting in a war because their products are legal in Mexico and the United States, and they're run by law-abiding businesses that pay taxes and create jobs. But the most offensive part of this presentation of Project Sam at our capital has to do with Gil Kurlikowski, our drug czar, threatening our state officials, including the Colorado Attorney General, threatening them that they have to enforce federal law. Kurlikowski said, quote, no state, no executive can nullify a statute that has been passed by Congress. Let's be clear. Law enforcement officers take an oath of office to uphold federal law, and they are going to continue to pursue drug traffickers and drug dealers. He is threatening the sovereign states of Colorado and Washington, despite the fact that Supreme Court case after Supreme Court case have already set the precedent that local officials, state attorneys general, county sheriffs, state police are not in the job, nor are they forced to have to enforce federal law. You want to enforce prohibition in Washington, Colorado? You're going to have to send the DEA to do it, Kurlikowski, because our states aren't going to do it for you anymore. We're not carrying water for prohibition. We're not going to be the foot soldiers in your federal insanity anymore. The people are behind us, majorities now, even majorities within older people and Republicans and independents believe this has to end. We'll talk more about this in hour 2. Toker Talk Radio, you can call in at 971-533-7111. For Brian the Red, I'm Radical Russ. Thanks for joining us, and until next time, take care of each other, Tokers.
This is the Russ Belville Show. The Russ Belville Show is blogging and podcasting daily at radicalruss.com.
You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant